From 1989 to 1991 and 1998 to 1999, Tula experienced turbulent times. An insane maniac, Sergey Tsukanov, was operating in the city. He was born on June 22, 1973, and was the only child in his family. Tsukanov's parents led a law-abiding lifestyle, had no problems with the law, and no bad habits. Sergey lived in a one-room apartment with his parents and his paternal grandmother. Tsukanov's grandmother was known for her choleric temperament and constantly criticized the actions of both Sergey and his parents, often reproaching them for various reasons. This provoked the creation of conflict situations, which caused Sergey to grow up in a socially disadvantaged environment. Because of this, even in his teenage years, Tsukanov began to display deviant behavior and signs of hatred and aggression toward elderly women who were overweight and resembled his grandmother. Tsukanov attended Tula School number 13. In 1988, he attacked the head of studies in the school restroom and attempted to assault her. But the teacher recognized Tsukanov and he was forced to flee. The incident was kept from the police, but Sergey was registered at a psychoneurological clinic and sent for a forensic psychiatric examination. During one of the examinations, the teenager stated that the motive for the attack was revenge for poor grades. However, during the struggle, he became aroused by the sight of her full hips and buttocks and decided to commit indecent acts. Since he had a sexual attraction disorder characterized by a painful sexual desire for elderly people who were the subject of his fantasies. According to the results of the examination, Tsukanov was diagnosed with mild mental retardation, but he was found to be sufficiently sane and was released. The future maniac returned to school, where he soon began to persuade one of his classmates to get intimate with him. After being rejected, Sergey began to show signs of mental disorder, injuring himself, for example, by cutting his skin with a knife and other sharp objects. Tsukanov committed his first attack in December 1989. His victim was 54-year-old Valentina Muhina, a scale operator at the flour mill. During the investigation, a factory worker with a previous conviction and conflict with the deceased became a suspect. However, later he proved his innocence and was removed from the list of suspects. In the fall of 1990, Tsukanov attacked Albina Boldireva, an elderly employee of one of Tula's enterprises, who was returning home from work, crossing one of the bridges over the Voronka River. During the attack, the criminal stabbed the victim in the back but was unable to finish what he intended because some passers-by appeared. The victim was taken to the hospital, where she gave a description of the criminal to the police officers who arrived, based on which they created a composite sketch. However, due to complications from the wound, the woman soon died. In March 1991, the criminal committed another attack in a forest park area on an elderly woman, Natalia Trankova. However, Natalia put up fierce resistance, which forced Tsukanov to flee in a hurry, losing his homemade knife in the process. He killed his third victim 5 days later. After committing the attack, Sergey assaulted the woman and then struck her several times on the head with a stone, which resulted in her death. During the investigation, the police determined that the knife found consisted of a blade that was welded to a reinforcement rod using electric welding, and a metal folding ruler was wrapped around it for reinforcement. After conducting a raid on enterprises in Tula that had mechanical repair shops and welding equipment, the investigation established that a similar knife had been made by workers at the local locomotive depot at the request of a teenage boy. At the same time, the investigation began checking all previously convicted individuals for sexual offenses and those registered at psychiatric dispensaries. During the investigation, the police learned that a certain Sergey Tsukanov had attacked a teacher in 1989, after which he became one of the suspects. In August 1991, soon after completing school, Tsukanov was arrested. During the search, the police did not find any evidence. Then he was identified by a surviving victim, and after that Tsukanov confessed to committing 3 crimes. At the request of his lawyers, he was sent for forensic psychiatric examination, which was conducted at the Kursk Psychiatric Hospital. Based on the results of the examination, Tsukanov was found to be sane, but he himself, his parents and his lawyer later claimed that the examination was conducted with violations. At the upcoming trial, the court could not impose the highest penalty on him, since at the time the crimes were committed, Tsukanov was not yet 18. At the end of 1991, the maniac was found guilty of all the charges brought against him and was sentenced to 10 years in prison, the maximum term of imprisonment for minors in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. After his conviction, Tsukanov was transferred to the Novomoskovsk correctional colony, where he met another inmate named Anatoly Denisov. With Denisov's support, while in prison, Tsukanov learned the profession of a carpenter and worked in production for all the following years. In prison, he earned a reputation as a model inmate, was not subjected to any disciplinary actions, and after receiving parole, was released in the summer of 1998. After his release, Tsukanov returned to Tula to his parents. A few months later, he found a job as a carpenter at one of the companies and met a girl who soon became his live-in partner. However, due to psychological incompatibility and lack of attraction, Tsukanov soon broke up with the girl and began abusing alcohol. The second series of crimes took place at the Smolensk cemetery in Tula, which was popularly known as Soap Hill, which is why Tsukanov later received the nicknames the Cemetery Maniac and the Soap Hill Maniac. On August 19, 1998, on Apple Feast Day, Tsukanov, being intoxicated, ended up at the cemetery where he met an 80-year-old woman who had come to visit the graves of her relatives. Sergey attacked her, forced her into an act, and took her life with a piece of metal pipe. The maniac reappeared at the cemetery on October 11th of that year. This time, he beat a 72-year-old elderly woman, assaulted her, and killed her with a shovel that the victim had brought with her. On October 30th, he attacked an 86-year-old elderly woman, also forced her to have intercourse with him, and stabbed her to death with her own umbrella. On November 16th, Tsukanov took the life of 65-year-old Nadezhda Romanova, who had come to the cemetery that day with her husband and another relative. For a while, they walked together along the same route. After that, Romanova left her relatives and headed to another section of the cemetery where one of her friends was buried. Tsukanov tracked the woman and attacked her, during which he beat and assaulted her, then tried to leave the scene of the crime but was noticed by cemetery workers. The workers' attention was drawn by Tsukanov's unkempt appearance and the dirt on the knees of his pants. Suspecting him of committing a crime, one of the workers went to the place from where Tsukanov had come and after several dozen meters discovered Romanova's body. Afterwards, some men attempted to pursue Sergey, but he had already exited the cemetery by then. During the investigation, based on witness statements, a composite sketch of the criminal was created, and the investigation checked several thousand people who suffered from mental disorders and had served criminal sentences for committing sexual offenses. The last victim of the serial maniac was 67-year-old Larisa Golubkova, who was acquainted with his mother. On March 28, 1999, Tsukanov and his parents were invited to a memorial service organized by Larisa Golubkova on the occasion of her son's death. After the memorial service late that same evening, a drunken Tsukanov came to Larisa Golubkova's house again and demanded a bottle of vodka. But Golubkova refused him, saying that this was not a wedding and that she had just gone through a tragic event. After being refused, Sergey flew into a rage. In a fit of anger, he attacked Golubkova, assaulted her and stabbed her several times, which resulted in her death. Tsukanov attempted to burn the house down to eliminate evidence but was spotted by Golubkova's neighbors. They gave testimony, and the next day, on March 29, 1999, Tsukanov was arrested. A blood sample was taken from him, and based on DNA analysis, his involvement in all the crimes was proven. He was also identified by the cemetery workers as the person who killed Romanova. After learning about this, Tsukanov soon expressed his willingness to cooperate with the investigation and confessed to killing 5 people. During the interrogations, he stated that the motive for attacking elderly women was a mental disorder. He insisted that he suffered from split personality and had problems with self-control. In the middle of 1999, Tsukanov's lawyers filed a motion at one of the pretrial hearings for a forensic psychiatric examination to determine the extent of his sanity, which was granted. At the end of the same year, Sergey was transferred to the Serbsky State National Center for Social and Forensic Psychiatry, where specialists worked with him for 2 months. Consequently, they concluded that Sergey has a severe form of schizophrenia. Because of this, at the time of committing the crime, he was unable to understand the nature and social danger of his actions. On the basis of this, on January 20th, 2000, by the decision of the regional court panel, Sergey Tsukanov was found insane, released from criminal responsibility, and sent for compulsory treatment in a psychiatric clinic under intensive supervision. He went to Orel after July 2007. His fate after that is unknown. It is possible that he is no longer alive, but no one knows for sure.